Is there really anything to discuss?
Yeah, I mean,
he can't coach this season.
Yeah, maybe there is something to discuss with Juwan Howard, and we should, and we will discuss it. But he is going to get penalized severely for doing this. I mean, it's one thing to let your emotions get a little bit out of control and to get in the face of Greg Gard, who is the head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers, who just laid a beat down on Michigan yesterday. And, the game got out of hand and the backups were in and they were still pressing and he called timeouts. And look, you get emotional. It is what it is. You're trying to defend your players. You're trying to defend the way that you play and you want it to be fair. There is such a thing as fair in sports. But you can't step over that line if you are the leader of the Michigan Wolverines basketball squad and everybody watches everything that you do because you're Juwan Howard, who is a legend in his own right from his college days. Yeah, he's going to get suspended. The question is for how long.
I don't care if he was some obscure coach from one of those other schools in Wisconsin. Like they've got like 3 or 4 schools, Wisconsin, Green Bay, right. Wisconsin, whatever the heck you call yourself.
Tony Bennett coached at one of those little schools
I did
before he
that.
was at Virginia.
It's not about the stage, or and I know you know this, but it's not about the recognition. It's about failing to really, be that, not to sound corny and contrived, but that role model, that leader, that moral compass for an institution, not just a group of young men playing basketball, but really, in almost all these instances, the head coach, either basketball or football, are the most recognizable aspects of the school. And you've got to take that role seriously. And he seems to just abdicate that responsibility far too often. This guy's got a control problem.
Yeah. No,
As Turgeon of Maryland, who he threatened to kill.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, the unwritten rules are a little frustrating in baseball. We've discussed those over the years. By the way, huge week for baseball, and we'll do that coming up next hour. Meeting today, every day, and the word that's being thrown around is urgency. Finally, looks like these guys are getting ready to dig in. Owners flying in.
The last minute, of course.
Yeah, that's okay as long as it gets done. So we'll do a lot of baseball next hour. But, you're down 76-61, which is 15 points. There's 15 seconds to go, and they're pressing Wisconsin. And again, I don't love it. You call the horses off. Doing a lot of games, I've seen it both ways where when you're up big and there's a ball deflected and you have a chance to throw down a dunk, do the right thing, pull it back, let the clock run out, shake hands, make it a day. Now, you could also make the case there's no reason to shake hands after a game. What's the reason?
I don't disagree. I mean, it's something that's been going on forever. And in football, especially in college and the NFL, they don't really do it. They kind of, you just go say, hey, if you want to somebody you might know on the other team or, but there's no line. There's no definitive
formal
there's no formal process. And you can imagine why. Because football is an emotional game. I mean, you've been physical with whoever your opponent is for a lot of minutes. You know what I mean? And a lot of banging and a lot of unsavory things that are said. So the last thing you want is to actually face one of those guys when your emotions are still high. Basketball doesn't usually end that way. It just feels like there's always an easing of or an understanding than the last moments of the game or ending that, we won type of thing. But you can see what happens when you are forced to do a handshake with someone you don't really want to shake hands with. Yeah. And that's what it came down to. Juwan Howard tried to walk past Greg Gard.
And that's got to be said. Greg Gard did initiate he amplified the tension. If he doesn't, and again, he didn't, Juwan Howard's postgame, I was threatened, stop.
No.
That's where you sound like a lunatic. You sound completely out of sorts here. But let's not absolve Greg Gard for grabbing him, stopping him, inflaming the situation. Now, I think that Greg Gard was also trying to explain, and he said in his postgame show, I didn't know if Juwan Howard knew the rule. Juwan Howard might not know the rule about the 10-second reset with that time out there, but two wrongs don't make a right. Should or even 4 at this point. Should Michigan have been pressing? No. Should Wisconsin have called the timeout? Well, again, the unwritten rules would say no. But now you have to have a correlation to the action of Michigan. Yeah. If you're going to press me, and you're going to keep playing hard, why can't I coach out my team the way I see fit?
Agreed.
So if Juwan Howard's got a problem with that, that's too bad.
Now, Juwan, he shouldn't have had a problem with it. I don't understand why he got so twisted on this, Juwan Howard.
Because he's got an anger issue. Honestly, that's the problem. When the documentation, when they had to really go through this with the conference, Turgeon said he threatened to kill them.
Yes.
At Maryland.
Yes, this was a year ago.
There are too many flare-ups in a short amount of time. Now, I am not getting on the air saying fire him, which I think is ludicrous. Although one more strike, Michigan's going to have to get rid of him.
Mm-hmm.
But I really believe he should not coach another second this season.
Well,
regular season, Big Ten tournament, NCAA tournament, out.
Well, that is
for this year.
See, the problem with that, with going that far, with suspending Juwan Howard for the rest of the regular season, which I could get down with. There's only 2 weeks left, 3 weeks left in the regular season. I believe I heard Jerry say there's only a couple of weeks left in the regular season. But then you penalize the team as well for the coaches of the actions of the head coach.
Mm-hmm.
And so they go into the Big Ten tournament, and they're at a disadvantage. Like, could they still win some games? Of course. But they're at a market disadvantage if Juwan Howard is not coaching in the Big Ten championship. And could they get hot and win? Maybe. I mean, they beat the crap out of Purdue a couple of weeks ago, BT, back in the early February. So Purdue's top 3 team in the country right now. So they can beat anybody if they're playing well. And if Juwan Howard's not on the bench, then they're probably at a disadvantage.
I know Phil Martelli's pretty good.
He is, but I just feel
pretty good career at St. Joe's.
I just feel like it's
Juwan's team.
Too punitive. Yes, it's Juwan's
I know
team.
what you're saying.
It's just too punitive.
Well, we disagree there, but I get you that without Juwan Howard, there's potentially an emotional drop off.
Yes.
From an X's and O's point of view, Martelli's going to be able to connect the dots. And listen, I don't want to get too much in the weeds on Michigan basketball. Nobody really cares that much locally, but I'll tell you this: if it was Mike Anderson at St. John's, if it was Coach Peichel at Rutgers, if it was Coach Willard at Seton Hall, if it was Rick Pitino at Iona, if it was anybody locally, it'd be saying the same thing.
Yeah, but
you can't coach you can't throw a fist.
No, you can't. The thing is,
even if it was an open, whatever, it was like half fist, half slap.
Yeah, I agreed. It was kind of
whatever it was pretty aggressive.
It was.
You just can't do that. You can't.
I don't think any of those other coaches would do it. Can you see Rick Pitino throwing a punch? Like, seriously, think about that.
No, not at this age.
Rick Pitino ever. I don't know if Rick Pitino would ever have thrown a punch at somebody. He just doesn't feel.
I guess
like
not.
he's that guy.
I don't know. I mean, he was a scrappy point guard back in the day.
He was.
Who knows? I don't know.
But I think Juwan Howard, because he's so big, man, he stands out, and he's former player, and he still plays or he still coaches like he's a player. You know what I mean? Like, he feels that emotion. I don't think these other coaches that you're talking about are get that heightened in real time. You know what I mean?
Well, because I think they understand where we are from a societal point of view, and not to dumb everything down and make everything soft and video. I'm actually the opposite with a lot of things, but sensibility's got to trickle in at some point here, and the University of Michigan's got to do the right thing. I mean, they absolutely they've got to relieve him of his whistle this season.
Yeah, well, the challenge,
firm belief there.
The challenge is that Kevin Warren, who is the commissioner of the Big Ten, can only suspend him for 2 games.
Correct.
And fine him. The money doesn't matter.
That's why I say Michigan's got to do the right thing.
Fine him $10,000.
It's on Michigan.
So it's got to go to Michigan.
He's getting the automatic 2-game ban for the conference. Now Michigan's got to tack on the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, what message are we saying? If you want to position yourself, I go, it doesn't really matter the academic profile. I get that. But that does weigh in a little bit here. Like, Michigan is one of the leaders of the NCAA from how they comport themselves, mixing academics with athletic success and achievement. And I also think that they've got to be a bit of a leader here in establishing a tone of what's right and what's not, what's not acceptable. And I think that they will.
Well, we haven't seen a lot of this. Like, we don't. This isn't something that's frequently occurring in college basketball.
You know what? And by the way, no, not real. Bobby Knight's long gone. Thank God. If if this happened in the bowels of the arena, I wouldn't be so assertive. But at that point, it's out of it's out of cameras' views. By the way, Andrew Catalan's call was great.
Of the fight,
yeah, and CBS did a really.
I didn't hear it.
Oh, he was good, and CBS did a good job of staying with the entire camera line. You could tell tensions were flared up here, but the amount of people, not everybody, but there's a fair amount of people making an excuse for Juwan Howard here. To me, it's. It's not a black-white thing. It's just it's a responsibility thing. It's a leadership thing. It's and that's it. I mean, if we could do this for 3 hours, for which we won't.
No.
But the bottom line is, Michigan's got to act swiftly. You've seen the footage. There's nothing else to decipher. And by the way, what makes it maybe more egregious here is that Juwan Howard, after the cool-down period, let's play this, Dove, goes in for his press conference and talks about. Well, first, let's hear what set him off. He didn't show a whole lot of contrition. Go ahead, guys.
I didn't like the timeout being called, and I'll be totally honest with you. I thought it was are, not necessary at that moment, especially being in a large league. And then
well, what are you pressing
have
for?
the timeout to be called with 3 seconds or 4 seconds to go. I thought that was, what I felt wasn't fair to our guys. And so that's what happened.
Okay. Now, a part of these things, you don't want to penalize somebody for something that didn't transpire. This did not spill into the stands.
No, it didn't.
Like the Palace.
Yeah, but you know what, BT? You saw – this is the challenge with a head coach on any level, in anything, is that your team, especially if you're a good head coach and your team really likes you, they end up wanting to come to your defense.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, as Juwan Howard is jawing at Greg Gard and the assistant Joe, I forget his last name, Krabenhoft, he's jawing at these guys. The players start to get involved in it. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, the players are in harm's way and about to get into fights and about to risk themselves being suspended as well. And so that's the example that you're talking about. The head coach should be the stabilizing force. Instead, he's the catalyzing force for the fight. That's why it's egregious. If he would have just yelled at Greg Gard, they got face to face. Who cares about that?
Yelling.
It's when they start getting physical and it trickles into the players themselves.
Well, that's why I said, you don't want to punish somebody for something that didn't happen, but I do believe there's an element of punishment that needs to be dropped to dissuade them. Because think about, while it didn't spill into the stands like the Pals at Auburn Hills years ago, I know college versus pro, but concept not that dissimilar, the involvement of patrons, of paying customers, you've got to send the message, and it's got to be a swift one, that this is completely unacceptable. There can't be anything up for interpretation. Now, years ago, let's see, was this Mullen's first or second year? I think it was his first year at St. John's. And they're playing Georgetown in the Big East tournament, right? And Ewing, this John Thompson III's the last game as Georgetown's coach. I don't know if you remember this, Steve, but I was doing the game with Minko. And Ewing and Mully were barking, and it started getting like, I've never seen Chris that fired up, where they were lunging at each other.
Wow.
And to your point, it was actually pretty wild. It was pretty cool to see the St. John. Thankfully, nobody got hurt. But to see the sparks with St. John's Georgetown, I was actually enjoying it. And, finally, a little pulse here. And to see the players, to your point about how, when you rally around the coach, that energy permeates the rest of the team, which is a good thing, provided that it's with structure. St. John's players and Georgetown players were coming to the defense of their coach. So the engagement and the level of involvement was manifesting itself throughout the lines there as they shook hands. I get it. Could have been a lot worse. It wasn't. We're not trying to make this out like Juwan Howard's got to be fired. But to me, this is pretty cut and dried. I mean, they are one of the main schools, university, all this prestigious reputation. Act like it.
Yeah.
And do the right thing and suspend him for the rest of the season.
And I think it'll happen quickly, too, BT. I mean,
it's got to.
It has to. It has to be today at some point where Juwan Howard faces the music on this. And, look, he'll be contrite and everything else that
I don't
goes
know.
with
He didn't seem very contrite after the game. Will he be?
He was still heated. You could tell he was still heated.
Okay. And he doesn't seem like a guy who's going to say something he doesn't believe,
true,
which I respect.
But my only problem with it is I don't know why this was so egregious. I don't get it.
I think he was pissed off. He was getting his brains rattled in by 15.
Yeah.
It's been a frustrating season.
It has been.
He deployed the press with 15 seconds to go. Deal with the consequences, dude.
They're 8-7. They're disappointing. They're 8-7 this year. 8-7 in the Big Ten. They've had some big wins. I'm not saying that,
but they're on the bubble.
They're not nearly the team that was 14-3 last year. They won the Big Ten. They were a favorite to win the NCAA title. They were the team. It was I don't know, it was a revolution in a sense for Michigan, even though they are consistently good. But Juwan Howard comes in, and he's just a guy. Now it doesn't feel that way this season.
877-337-6666. Tiki and Tierney here on the Fan. Obviously, we'll squeeze in all the baseball, what you guys need to know for today. Maybe a little all-star game celebration. But right now, we're talking about what's going on in Michigan and what should happen. All right, let's hear from you. Noel's in Manhasset on the Fan. What up, Noel?
Everything's cool here, but I'm watching Coach Howard. To me, looks like a little child that lost his cool, and besides the fact, he looks like a giant coward hiding and trying to cold cock a guy.
Yeah, from behind somebody else. I hear what you're saying.
But he's People spend tens of thousands of dollars to send their children to that school, and many of them go into hock. And this is what the school was teaching.
We're like
Go
hundreds
punch
at
a
this
guy
point.
because you're upset. This is ridiculous.
All right,
There's
so what
enough
would you
hate in
do?
America.
So, no, what would you do? You run Michigan. What do you do?
I would fire him on the spot.
Fire him. Wow.
Fire him. Fire him on the spot.
Wow.
Fire
Okay.
him on the spot. Let him cool his heels for a couple of years. Let him know that this is not a way to behave.
Well, it's not the playground. It's not a pickup game. It's big time athletics. I got you. No, I didn't mean to. I thought you were done. My bad.
Yeah.
Fire him. First call of the day says fire him.
I don't know if
Seems a little.
Yeah, that's
little much.
And there was a history,
Wow.
and there is kind of a history.
Well, there is a
even
little.
even though it's not the same history. The Turgeon stuff was a little bit different, but it did get heated as well. And I don't even remember what that was about. And that's the problem.
I was in the Big Ten tournament.
It
right?
was, but I don't remember what
precipitated.
Yeah, I don't know what it was about either. And so that's going to be the problem
Fire him.
with this going forward. Is that he's going to Juwan Howard's going to get this reputation of being this, I don't know, this malcontent head coach who just
hothead.
Yeah, hothead.
Well, he's earned that.
Who flies off the handle.
No, that's true.
But it's going to be for things that don't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? So the Turgeon thing against Maryland, I don't remember what happened in that situation.
But Michigan needs to, and they will.
I know, but I'm just saying, for Juwan Howard's point, like, he's got to think, and he's not, that this is going to affect him because people are going to remember the end result. They're not going to remember why.
Yeah.
He was upset.
I see what you're saying.
Right? They're just going to remember
details will get lost.
They get lost.
Yeah.
No, and this was a year ago. I don't even remember what happened.
This won't be forgotten though. This is going to be less obscure.
But are you going to remember why?
Yes, this is different to me.
Because he was pressing and then they called timeout.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I mean, we will, but I think I think most people will forget the details. That to you, at that point, I'm with you on that. Teddy's in Yonkers on the fan, Tiki and Tierney. Teddy, what's happening?
Good morning, guys. Long-time listener. I love your conversations.
Appreciate you, Teddy.
Tiki, let me ask you.
Go ahead.
I was I think I've told you this before. I taught for 40 years.
Yep.
I coached girls and boys basketball, high school.
That's right.
And there were many times in the classroom where a student would just tick me off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you want to go up to them or you want to say something, but I'm saying to myself, Teddy, hold back.
Yeah.
You don't want to deal with the consequences.
I do that with my 8-year-old. I'm like, all right, just walk away.
Go to
just
bed.
walk away. Don't
Tiki,
say anything.
I want to ask Tiki.
Yeah.
Playing in the NFL for as long as you did,
Yeah.
were there any times where a defensive player maybe even did something wrong to you, or you felt that it was an unnecessary hit? Or
Sometimes, yes. But I never got upset. And BT knows this story because we've been together for so many years. Mm-hmm. The only time I've ever gotten upset during a game was on a punt return. And it was against the St. Louis Cardinals. And I called for a fair catch. And as you're supposed to do as a punt returner, you call for fair catch, but then you run away from the ball so that the ball, hits and rolls and goes into the end zone, right? So I call for a fair catch, and I'm running away from the ball. And then the long snapper just drills me. And there was a penalty on him, but it was offsetting because I threw a punch at him.
Attaboy.
Exactly. Because I was like, why the hell you hit me? I don't even have the ball.
Uh-huh.
It was the only time I ever got upset in a football game. And I got fined. I forget what the fine was, but it was, this was early in my career.
What was the Giants' reaction at that point? Knowing when it's on film, what he did to you first? They were cool with it, right?
They were cool. They just, because it's not me. You know what I mean? It's not my personality.
But you were young. They didn't know what you were yet fully at that
point.
point.
It was my second year, though.
Oh,
so, I was around for a couple of years. So, but anyways, after that, I realized that, first of all, I don't want to lose whatever it was, I think maybe made $30,000.
What?
Because I threw a punch.
You got hit $30,000 back in '98?
I think it might not have been 30, whatever it was. I got it reduced to whatever it ultimately became.
Tiki on line one, he'd like to appeal.
It just disappeared from my check, and I remember that's a big number. And so from that point on, whenever guys would do something egregious, I just smile through it. You know what I mean? So because it wasn't worth fighting.
And by the way, the difference, and I understand the difference, though, you're not the leader of young men. You're responsible for you.
It might have been 15, and it went down to 7.
Got it.
Yeah.
You're not the coach.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a different standard,
That's
right or wrong. It's got to be.
That's right.
877-337-6666.